Hey cinephiles, with the sun finally setting on the longest awards season of our lives, it's prime time for my now annual tradition of ranking this year's Best Picture nominees, counting down to the very best. I will also briefly review each film along the way. As I said in my video covering all of the 2021 Oscar nominations, I think this is a solid crop of Best Picture nominees. Of course, there's some I would gladly swap out for films that were snubbed of the Academy's highest honor. But these 8 nominees are a strong sampling of the films and filmmakers that drew attention and sparked conversations in the unprecedented year of film that was 2020. As with all my lists on Cineflect, this is my personal ranking. I'm sure your list looks different, and so, as always, I invite you to share your own ranking in the comments below. Alright, let's start the countdown. Number 8. The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Are the people ready to make opening arguments?
Aaron Sorkin's sophomore effort as a writer-director is a historical legal drama about the anti-Vietnam War protesters charged in the fallout of the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It hits the ground running, assembling its ensemble cast and planting every reason to hope for justice on their behalf. Now, I'm far from the first person to suggest that Aaron Sorkin, the director, is no match for Aaron Sorkin, the writer, but the sentiment remains and cannot be overstated. Sorkin actually wrote this film back in 2007 with Steven Spielberg attached to direct, but plans fell through following the Writers Guild strike. Man, I wish we could have seen that film. Maybe it's for this reason that The Trial of the Chicago 7, for better or worse, feels the most old-fashioned of the nominees. In Oscars past, this is precisely the kind of film that would go on to win Best Picture. And lest we think the Academy has moved on, let's not forget that Green Book won just 2 years ago.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
It's obviously well written and it's certainly well acted, it just never raised the bar, or even attempted to, especially the ending, treated with Sorkin's trademark sentimentality. That said, if you want to see a filmmaker who managed to breathe new life into the courtroom drama last year, do yourself a solid and check out Steve McQueen's masterfully composed Mangrove, the first film in his Small Axe anthology, which I lamented the ineligibility of in my Oscar nominations video. I won't turn down an opportunity to highlight that film. Number 7. Promising Young Woman. The great Carey Mulligan stars as a 30-something med school dropout living with her parents, who wields her traumatic past against men who would take advantage. As a pitch-black rom-com with revenge thriller elements and dramatic undertones, it does take some mighty big tonal swings, though it's held together by such a taut script, the kind filled with revelations and then projects where it's going to make the audience feel smart, only to then pull the rug out from under them. I was blindsided by the divisive last act, which I think takes Promising Young Woman to the next level. As the feature-length debut of writer-director Emerald Fennell, mostly I'm just excited to see whatever she decides to make next. Number 6. Minari. This bears the most straightforward and, frankly, unexciting plot synopsis of all the nominees. A Korean family starts a farm in 1980s Arkansas. But what it lacks in proclamation, it makes up for in meditation, a character-driven, semi-autobiographical family drama from writer-director Lee Isaac Chung, set to the soothing psalms of Emile Mosseri's original score. For a film that feels so slice of life, it does become a victim of its own plotting with a conscripted climax, but the performances never falter, with sturdy foundations by the parents played by Yaren Han and Steven Yeun, and the scene stealers, their son David played by Alan Kim, and the grandma played by Ye Jong-un. Minari is a distinct and welcome examination of an immigrant family testing and tasting the so-called American dream. Number 5. Judas and the Black Messiah. If ever there was an Oscar for Best Movie title, my vote would go to this. It tells the true story of Bill O'Neill, who infiltrates the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party in order to take down its chairman, Fred Hampton. There you have your Judas and Black Messiah. Originally sold as The Conformist meets The Departed, it makes for a thrilling, engrossing, and ultimately infuriating look at how the United States government tramples the rights of black lives to take away their power. While O'Neill is the focal point, for which the film received considerable criticism, Hampton is the soul of the picture, and Kaluuya's revelatory performance is worth all of its praise. The film may have benefited from sharper focus and nuance, especially since O'Neill's character remains something of an enigma when all is said and done, not to mention the assured deification of Hampton. But as is, Judas and the Black Messiah is a mighty sophomore enterprise from co-writer-director Shaka King. Number 4. The Father. Anthony Hopkins stars in the title role as an elderly man fiercely fighting for his independence while grappling with progressive memory loss. If Minari's synopsis failed to enthuse, the plot of The Father is a downright downer. Indeed, on a list of nominees dealing with all manner of harrowing subject matter, this takes the cake as the feel-bad movie event of the year. Now, your mileage may vary, but making for a depressing experience has never stopped me from praising a film. While The Father is far from the first film to dramatize the plight of dementia, it confronts the symptoms by placing the viewer in the headspace of the inflicted, an effect made possible through cast and craft best discovered for yourself. The result is the bridge from sympathy to empathy. The Father is the directorial debut of Florian Zeller, an adaptation of his own play of the same name. While the theatrical roots feel close to the surface, it takes full advantage of a new medium, training the camera through a contained space, if for no better reason than bringing us closer to the protagonist, mentally and physically. Hopkins, who has given a lifetime of great performances, gives one of his very best. Many of us have had to sit by helplessly and watch as a loved one's mind slowly slips away, a fate arguably worse than death. For some, this film may be too close to home and something they just can't bear to take in. But those who choose to engage will find a film that is both artful and powerful. Number 3, Mank. The title is the sometimes affectionate, sometimes exasperant nickname of one Herman J. Mankiewicz, portrayed here by Gary Oldman, in a biographical drama as he developed and wrote the screenplay for what is considered one of the greatest films of all time, Citizen Kane. Director David Fincher, working from a script penned by his late father, was originally going to film Mank in the late 90s, but his insistence on shooting in black and white was shot down by the studio at the time, delaying this dream project for over 20 years. The confluence of old and new Hollywood is evident throughout Mank. Fincher got his way and shot in black and white, but on digital cameras, and while some are quick to dismiss the sound as merely monophonic, there's a lot more to it. It's not so much designed to sound like films of the era as much as it's designed to sound like watching films of that era. Of course, all this technical wizardry would be wasted were it not for the intoxicating character piece at the center of it all. The notion of a washed-up screenwriter having their past wrung out and their soul hung up to dry, making substantial art in the process. Mank garnered 10 Oscar nominations, more than any other film this year, and they are each deserved, and yet it's still snubbed for its brilliant screenplay. Number 2, Sound of Metal. This excavates the experience of a heavy metal drummer losing his hearing. It's also an open-veined look at life with a disability and life as an addict. While there are heartbreaking moments, what's crucial is that there are moments working to mend a broken heart. Riz Ahmed and Paul Raci, both nominated for their work here, each in turn offer one of the most human and touching performances of the year. Nothing rings false. On top of that emotional foundation is an experimental and extraordinary feat of sound design and sound editing, which serves as a vicarious act, granting further access and understanding of the character's hardships. Sound of Metal is a remarkably unshowy showcase for writer-director Darius Marder and what I consider to be the best scripted directorial debut of 2020. Number 1, Nomadland. The third film from writer-director Chloe Zhao charts one woman's seasonal migration through the American West as a van-dwelling nomad after losing everything in the Great Recession. Two-time Oscar winner Frances McDormand gives a performance worthy of a third as she chameleons into a lonesome soul with a long stretch of road behind and ahead of her. The film is an adaptation of the non-fiction book Nomadland, Surviving America in the 21st Century. By casting seasoned Hollywood actors among actual nomads and spending time learning and living their lifestyle, the film feels both researched and lived in. Zhao doesn't bridge the gap between documentary and scripted filmmaking so much as she resides in the canyon between the two, which makes Eternals, her upcoming entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the single film on the horizon I am most curious about. But one thing for certain is that Zhao can operate on a grand canvas. While on paper her films sound like intimate indies, they deliver a different kind of spectacle. Some were understandably confounded when Nomadland received an IMAX release, but those who had seen how Zhao's last film, The Rider, captured the austere aura of the Midwest knew what that entailed. Nomadland mines the magnificence of the West and the tomes of its inhabitants. It refrains from judgment, remaining solely observational and allowing the characters encountered along the way to speak for themselves. America is a land of natives, nomads, pioneers, and immigrants. It's fitting that Chloe Zhao, a Chinese filmmaker, is composing some of the best films about American lives today. And that's my personal ranking of the 2021 Oscars Best Picture nominees. How would you rank these films, and what do you make of them? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you down there. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to Cineflect for video essays, film lists, and more.
I got this!
And click that bell next to the subscribe button if you'd like to be notified anytime I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. For Cineflect, I'm JS Lewis. Until next time, watch something good.